on how to write a literature review chapter. But actually, my session is not just about how to write, but I will also share with you some tactics on how to read in order to collect the literature, in order to have a good literature review chapters. Okay, so my session is kind of long, so I hope you are patient to stay with me. Okay, so now let's get started. Can I start now?
Yes, doctor, please.
Okay, so let's get started. Why? Okay, now it's working. So when we talk about literature, so what is a literature review? So why do we need a literature review? So actually, a literature review is defined by many scholars in the literatures, but I myself like this definition by Professor Ridley, 2012. It's just because her definition had three components, three key components, I can say, about the literature review. As you can see here, a literature review is an extensive reference to related research. It means that when we do a literature review, we need to do a kind of extensive reading on scholarly writing related to our research topic. And not only that, we have to make the connection between them. And after we make the connection between them, we have to place ourselves as researchers and our works into the literatures in relation to the other researchers and the other research. So that's why, it's kind of didn't work. Okay, so this is why the literatures is very necessary in order for us to do the to review, in order to do the research before we do the research. So let's come to some reason why we need to do the literature review. Oh, why it doesn't work? Okay, it's work now. There's actually some reason for doing the literature review, but for me, I think for a graduate student like a PhD or the master student, your purpose in reviewing the literatures in your topic is to show your thesis examiner that you know you have the sufficient understanding of your topic, your research topic. You are updating yourself with the knowledge. You know your topic very well. You know what is happening now, what has been going before. And by doing the literature review, you are actually updating yourself to the current state of the knowledge. And by doing that, you are making yourself an expert of the topic you are researching. Your thesis supervisor or maybe your thesis examiner may know about your topic, but I'm sure that they do not know in details about what you are researching because they did not have did not spend or do not spend a lot of time reading about your topic. So that's why that's the place for you to show your knowledge to your thesis committee or thesis supervisor. And also by reviewing the literatures, you are able to know what has been done and what hasn't been done before. So what it has been done before, that is where you place your research in. It means that by reviewing the literature, you are able to justify the research gap, the niche of your research. And also by reviewing the literatures, you can build up your conceptual framework, the theoretical perspective for your study. In our fields, we do not always need the conceptual framework. Only for those who follow the quantitative research, you may need it in order to test the hypothesis or the relationship between the variable. But if you are planning to do the research qualitatively, you just need the theoretical perspective. And in order to have these keys, perspective or framework for your study, you need to do the literature review. And also from reviewing the literature, you are able to be informed about the research method, which research method you should use in order to research on your topic. Because when you review the literatures, you know the strength, the weaknesses of the research study. So that's what you can learn from, and you can develop the research method that works best for your research topic. And you know what, in the literature, there are many kinds of literature review. And I think as a graduate student, you also need to know about the literature can range from selective to comprehensive. And it can also be a part of the broader work or the standalone work. For example, when you are doing the coursework, like during your research program, your professor asks you to do an assignment, and that assignment requires you to do literature review of a certain topic. So what you review for that assignment is selective because you just focus on a certain aspect of the literature, and this is a standalone work because this is your assignment. But if you do the literature review for your thesis, you are writing a chapter for your thesis. So that's the part of the bigger work, or we say the broader work. And because your research topic may include a lot of subtopics, so that's why you need to review on the related aspect for your research topic. So that's why the literature review chapters in your thesis should be comprehensive. And similar to the literature review chapters in the thesis, when you write the research article, you also need to have the literature review. And usually we combine it with the introduction section in the research article. And this literature review, I mean the literature review in the research article is also a part of the broader work because it's a section in the research article. But this literature review is selective because you just select the literatures in order to contextualize, in order to provide the context for the topic you are going to present in that topic, in that paper only. And another kind of literature review, I think, if you are lucky enough, you may see them. That's the kind of research paper, but it focuses on only the literature of a given topic. So for example, if you come across the paper that write the comprehensive view on review on the topic you are planning to do, you are read the literature in order to have the overview of the topic you are going to research on. Okay, so now let's come to the main part of my sharing today. So how to write the literature's review chapters. So for me, there are three key things you need to do in writing the literature review chapters. The first thing is reading. I think this is important just because you cannot write the literature review chapter without reading. And the second thing is genre. Genres here I refer to how to write, how to structure your chapters, how to structure what you read from the literatures for your research topic. And the last part is citation. I think you may think citation is just convention we have to follow in writing academic or writing for research paper or academic text, but actually citation help us a lot as a writer in constructing our argument and also constructing our identities as researchers. So now let's go through each part one by one. So the first part is reading. So for those novice as researcher, I mean a research student, you may have a lot of questions before you get started the research project for your study. You may ask, oh, where should I start? How should I search for the reading? And how do I know the material or the literature I found is good or reliable, worth my reading time or not? And how should I read in order for me to write the literature review chapters? So here is some of advice I would like to share with you. So where to start? So usually, when you decided what to do the research on for your study, I believe that you already talked with your supervisors about your idea or maybe your plan, and your supervisor may provide you some source for you to read. So that's where you start. You should start from the sources provided by your supervisor. And then I think that also from your discussion with your professor or a supervisor, you know, at least to have some idea for your research. But it is better if you have the clear research question and you know what you are focusing on by having some keywords, because those are the key things you need to refer back during the time you write, or even the whole time you are working on your thesis. And some people may say that, oh no, I read the literature first and then I find the research gap and then I develop my research question. Yes, it's work that way either. But at least, no matter what way you follow, but at least you need to have the clear idea or the clear intention of what you would like to research. in order for you to have some guidelines in order for you to follow in searching for the literature. If not, it may take you years to read, but you still didn't know what to look for. Okay, and the last thing is that if you have some idea for your research, feel free to share with your friends, your colleagues, or whoever you think they can also come across or search for the literature for themselves. And this advice actually did work for me when I did my PhD. My classmate knew my topic, research topic, and when he searched for his own reading materials, he came across to the paper on my field, and he forwarded it to me. And guess what? That paper became the key one in my study, because I make use of the framework from that paper for the analysis of the data in my study. So what I would like to say here is that feel free to let your friend or colleagues or anyone you think they may do the reading on the literatures know about your research intention. It help you to, maybe they will help you to have the paper you need. Okay, so the next question is that how to search. For sure, you need to know which research journal published the paper in your field. For example, if you would like to do the research on second language writing, so at least you need to know which journal published the paper on this topic. For example, you should know, oh, the Journal of Second Language Writing, or Writing Journal, or the Journal of English for Pacific Purposes. Those are the journal, the key journal published the paper on the topic you are reading. And later, as you with the keyword or with the research question in mind, you use the search engine to look for the sources you would like to read. And if the source require you to pay, so try to make use of the online library of your university. They may help you to get the source you want. And when you are doing the reading, we also need to use the snowball strategy. The snowball strategy means you need to look at the reference list at the end of the paper in order to find whether there are any paper on your topic or related to your topic or not. And you also can also refer to the reference list of the thesis related to your topic in order to look for related paper. And another thing you need to remember is that when you do the reading, if you see some citations repeatedly cited in many papers, you need to pay attention to them because they are the key.
Sambil dengar.
Work in your field. Okay, so how do you know the source is good? You can know the source is good by checking the author and the research. Checking the author, who's the writers? Is the writer an academic figure? Is the writer an expert or the standing figure in the field? Or is the research relevant or academic? Or just the personal view published on a personal blog? Okay, beside the author and the research, you also need to check the source, like whether the paper published in the peer-reviewed journal or not, whether it is a published book, or what is the source of the material you are reading. For me, the paper in the peer-reviewed journals are the good one. Why? Because at least they are checked and reviewed by two experts in the field, so kind of reliable. And another way you can know whether the paper is good or not, is worth your reading time or not, is to use the Google Scholar. And in the Google Scholar, they have the function cited by. You can check the number of citation a particular paper was cited, so you can know whether it's good or not. Okay, so now let's move on to the reading strategy. So when you read, how can you read in order for you to have enough information, or maybe to arrange or to have the necessary literature for your writing? So this is some way you need always to focus on what you plan to research. Remember that. If not, you will go around and around the literature, because the literature is huge. If not, you are swimming in that sea of literature. So please stick to your keyword or your intention of a research. Okay, and when you read, don't highlight. Take note on what you think is important or what you think is related to your study. Because when you highlight it, and you will forget what it's for. When you do the writing, you may look back at the paper you have read, and at that time you ask yourself, what is it for? Why I highlighted it? It's a waste of your time. So that's why write down things that you think is important related to your study. And also you need to arrange what you write down from the reading in kind of proper ways in order for you to refer or to get back easily. So you may use a table or some matrix to organize what you have summarized. For example, you can organize them according to the same research method, or maybe the same theoretical perspective, or the same maybe debate, but who we against, who we for. You need to group the information in some way that you think can help you to get back to them easily when you write. And also you have to read analytically. What I mean reading analytically is that when you read, you just should not focus on one paper. But when you read a certain paper, you also need to make the connection of read to see how they are related, to see how they are connected to each other or how they are developed, which one is developed before the other. And by doing that, you are looking for the trends, the themes, the patterns, or the debate existing in the literatures. And also you can find, oh, what is missing? Oh, there's lots of research done on this topic, but what hasn't done? So those are the things you need to, the skill you need to do in reading in order to have some a good idea or a good organization of the literature. You need to connect your idea to the literature. Because the purpose of reviewing the literature is to position yourself and your research into the literatures. So that's why whatever you found in the literatures, and then where you think you can stand in that sea of the literature, place yourself in immediately. So always refer back to your research when you do the reading. Okay, don't wait until you do the writing. In general, the literature look like this visually. So often there are major works that have been written on a certain topic, and the later works that have been built on the major works. And the new written works will extend or maybe respond to the major works in some way. And with the time, the other newspaper or research will be built up on the network of the literature. And you can see here, the literature is a kind of the evolving network, evolving web. And your duties in doing the literature review is to find the connection, the relation of the literatures in this network. And you should also navigate where you stand in that network. So it means that you need to look for the place where you can position yourself and the research into the network of the literature on your topic. Okay, so now, when you do the reading, so remember, don't read everything. Don't waste your time. Just read the abstract to evaluate is related or not. If not, put it aside. Don't need to think much about it. And if you can, look for the literatures that summarize the literature paper, I mean the literature review paper that summarize the whole literature of your topic. This will save you a lot of time. And also set the time to read. You should not spend time reading and reading and reading. You need to set the time to read for 1 week and then to write down something, at least to write down what you have read, maybe on a certain themes, on a certain aspect of the research. And with the time, you will have whole writing of the own aspect for your research, I mean that you have the chapters. Don't read until you feel like, okay, I read on the paper and now I get started. I'm sure that you will forget the paper or the research that you have read long ago. So that's a waste of your time. So again, set your time to read and write, because if you don't start writing, you will never finish the chapters. Okay, remember that? And also you need to use some reference management software like M.Pd and Note or Zotero in order to log in your reference, because it saves you a lot of time in writing. Okay, so now let's move on to the second part of my sharing today. So from collecting the literatures, now how to write. So you see from my sharing, when you do the reading, you do a lot of cognitive activities, because you start from reading and then summarizing in order to find the relevant, the related research, and then you make the compare contrast, you analyze or synthesize in order to find the patterns, to find the connections between the literatures, like I showed you in the web of the network of the literatures in the field. And the important thing is that from what you analyze, from what you found from the literatures, how you make the meaning of what you found. It means that when you write the literature review chapters, what you are going to do is to argue for the reason for you to do the research, to argue for your theoretical framework you follow or you chose to follow, or argue for the research method you plan to use or you plan to adopt or adapt. So whatever you write in the literature's review chapters are your arguments. So again, the literature review chapters consist of your argument, multiple argument. What you write there in the purpose, in the intention of supporting what you think, what you plan to do in your research. So how we do it, how we structure this, because we have a lot of arguments, so how can we structure these chapters? So now, how we structure the chapters? Writing the literature review chapter is exactly like writing any academic text. Why I say that? Because we only need the three-part component. We say that the three-part structures of introduction, body, and conclusion. And I need to emphasize here is that these structures, the three-part structures, is not one time in the literature review chapter, but it is repeatedly used in these chapters, depending on how many aspects or how many subtopics you are going to review. So for each subtopic, for each aspect you are going to review, you have to organize them according to the three-part structures. So now let me talk about the whole chapters with the three-part structures. Now, first, at the beginning of your literature review chapters, you need to introduce, you need to remind the reader of your research purpose, your research objectives. And you need to use some signposts to show how you structure the chapters. For example, you have three topic or aspect you have to review in this chapter. So you have to say, this chapter will first, after you introduce the objectives of your study, okay, you need to give the structure of your chapter. So you have to start first, this chapter start reviewing topic A, followed by topic B, and then ends with topic C. So that's give the reader the side spot, or I say the overview of how the structure, how you structure the chapters. And the next part, after your introduction of the chapter E, your review of topic A. So when you start reviewing topic A, you again start using the three-part structure. You introduce that section, how you organize it, maybe your purpose in reviewing that aspect, and then you start with the body and then conclusion. And then if you start with reviewing, if you continue with reviewing topic B, you do the same. You introduce it, how you structure that section, that small section. So again, the three component section is repeatedly used in the literature review chapter. So now I just focus on the main one here. Okay, so first, at the beginning of the chapter, you introduce remind the reader of your research purpose, and then what you will review, and give them some signposts to follow. And in the body, because you have to review a lot of research aspect or the aspect related to your research or the subtopic. So that's why you have to organize them in some ways. Okay, how can you organize? We can organize them according to the theme you group the topic together. You group the people or the research that share the same theory together or the same models together, or you can group them according to the research method. Okay, this group, this section you review on one way of researching the topic. Another section is another way of researching the topic. It's up to how you, how and what you find in the literatures. You can also organize them according to the time, what happened first, what happened next, and also according to the geography, the locations. For example, you can say how this topic is studied in Europe in America, in Australia, in Asia, and then in Indonesia. And in Indonesia or in other locations, how these researchers were found and what they talk about this topic and what they haven't talked about this topic. And that's where you play your research in. And you can also organize the body of your literatures according to your research question. And when you write a conclusion, here I just mentioned on the big conclusion of the chapters, but actually for each review team, you also have the three part component structure. So when you write a conclusion, no matter the conclusions of the chapters or the conclusion of each section in the chapter, you need to refer back to your purpose in reviewing that. And second, you summarize what you have reviewed. And then refer to your study. From what you have reviewed, what you found, and what you think your research can do better in order to fill the gap or to complete the discussion, something like that. You need to take the chance to establish a niche for your study, no matter is it the conclusions of the whole chapter or of each subtopic you are reviewing. Okay, so now some note for you to remember, especially the notice for writing the body parts of the chapters. So I have 4 notes I would like you to remember when you write the literature review chapters. So remember, always iterate what other people say in your writing, okay? So how to do that? So how to do that here is, first, you introduce the view. For example, you are discussing about the theories X, for example, and then you need to introduce it. And after that, you will place this view in the debate. How do you place the view in debate? You have to introduce what experts, what previous researchers say about this, and what are the common view they share about this, and then how about the other who are against this, what they say, and what are the 2 sides of the argument about this. Okay, so in order to do that, you are moving from general to specific example. General is mean that the statement, the claim, the view you just mentioned, and then you move from specific, general to specific example mean you have to show which study, which scholar talk about that, which group of scholars share that view. So you move from introducing the general view about a certain topic, and then you need to one by one explain each reviewer, or we say that each study, what they say about that view. Okay, in order to do that, you need to use the methods like the meta-analysis in order to collect the literatures, in order to place them in the debate. Okay, and you also need to show who did what, who said what, when you are interacting the other people in the study. So that's why I say citation is important, especially in literature review chapters. Okay, look at example here. This topic is taken from the paper on how to provide feedback on student writing. So it means that a written corrective feedback, WCF. Now, as you can see here, there are, but look at the first sentence. Look at the first sentence. The writer introduced the debate, the current state of the debate on this topic. Okay, and then in the second sentence, the writer emphasized the specific aspect the scholar in the field have argument over, direct, indirect, or focus, unfocused feedback. And in sentence number 3, the writer placed the debate I mean that the writer specifically focused on each debate over each argument, direct, indirect, or focus, unfocused. And in order to do that, the writer used some work. I highlight, I use bold work here, you can see. Some scholars argue that in the first topic, they talk a direct feedback or indirect feedback. And in contrast, however, so that is how you move from introducing the standard view and then placing that view in the debate. And continue, the writer talk about unfocused or focus. And similarly, they also use some signal work to show the logic of the writing in the paragraph, because here they are arguing and showing the debate between two sides of the argument over this subtopic, focus or unfocused. Okay, so now let's continue with the next one. Remember, the second thing you need to remember when writing the literature review chapter is that place your research in the debate, because the main purpose of reviewing literature is for you to position your research in the literatures. So that's why I find a way to do it. So how to do it? You need to know what your theoretical perspective is. So for example, in the paper, the writer writes about written corrective feedback. It means correcting student writing. The writer is in support or was in support of the benefit of correcting student writing, even though people in the literature say that no, not benefit. And some also say, yes, it's beneficial to students. So that's why you yourself need to know about what you think about that topic, that theme, or that theory. Okay, so what do you say about topic X, for example? And how do you agree with scholar X who talk about this topic? How do you agree with scholar B who talk about this topic, but with a different? How you disagree with scholar C about this topic? And then, even though you have some scholar you agree with and some scholar you don't agree with, but you need to provide the argument, the reason, the justification in order to show your argument is important. So that's how you play your research in the debate. Okay. Example here, as I mentioned to you before, the writer of this paper think correcting student writing is a good teaching technique because it's beneficial to the student. So in order to argue for that perspective, the writer, you see, first introduce in sentence number 1, introducing the debate in the literatures over this topic. And then from sentence number 2, the writer try to show the writer opinion. There are equally strong reasons for teacher to continue giving feedback because it is important and students regard its value in order to justify what the writer thinks. The writer cite the reverse study in order to support the authority in the field also believe or also think like what I think, and continue the writer propose some way in order to make these teaching techniques effective. So you see in sentence number 3, and then they list a lot of way. But when they list the way or the reason to support the writer argument, the writer also cite the literatures. We say use the citation. Sometimes, okay, you see in bracket, sometimes put at the subject of the sentence. Okay, so that is how you need to do in writing the literature review chapter. Place your research into the literatures, and that's how you position yourself and your research into the literatures. Okay, so now look, move to number 3. So no matter how many subtopics you have for the literature review chapter, you need to organize your writing into paragraphs. So in order to organize into paragraph, it helps you to avoid the shopping list, because sometimes you just write the literature review chapter like the list of the reverse study. You summarize each one by one, and that's what you need to avoid, because it's not effective. It cannot help you to argue for your perspective or research perspective or identity as well. So you should avoid say research A say this, researcher B say that. No, that's not good. But you have to start with the topic sentence. That topic sentence introduce the view, like I just explained in the reverse part, and then you have to draw the connection between among the literatures over that topic. It means that how people say about that topic, whether they have a debate over that topic or not, and who say yes, who say no over that. It means that who support, who's against that topic. You have to group them together, like what I share with you in the reading. That's what you have to do. So when you write a paragraph, you need to start with the topic sentence, and then you draw the connection, the relationship between the research you have read on that topic. And in order to make your paragraph cohesive and coherent, for sure, you need to organize them with the topics, and then using some cohesive devices like pointing words or transitional words in order to show the link of your or the flow of your idea in the paragraph. And one thing I need to say here is that when you use the pointing words, like after you state the view or the perspective over the certain topic, and you say this mean that, so try to avoid using these or that or those, but it's better if you use those words followed by a noun, like this debate, this concept. I think it's me make the reader understand your writing better than this or this, because sometimes you confuse them just because they don't know what you refer to by using this or this. Okay, now continue with the last one. You need to structure your paragraph, but remember your paragraph of each review topic should have two elements. The two elements in the paragraph of the literature review chapter. So what are they? The first thing is that you need to have the interpretive element. The interpretive element means you describe what were done on that topic and what the researchers or what the reverse researchers said about what they found in their research, what conclusion they made from their research. So the descriptive part is what you show, what you say, what you report, the reverse study. And the second part is the interpretive part. The interpretive part is also where you evaluate the descriptive part. In this part, you have to show your evaluation, your interpretation or analysis or explanations over what other people say. So in including the interpretive part, you are raising your voice, you are integrating your voice into the literatures. So after you interpret the reverse study, you need to show your viewpoint is what I say, because without interpretation, you cannot synthesize, you cannot come up with the meaning or with the place for you to place your argument in. So that's why it is an important part of writing the literature review chapters, interpretive parts in writing. So now how we move from descriptive to interpretive. So in order to move from descriptive to interpretive, so you can see the example here, it's not difficult. It's just a way to write. Okay, example number one, only one sentence, but actually it consists of two parts, descriptive and interpretive. The descriptive part here, as you can see, first mention about what events 2001 found. And the interpretive part here showing the writer interpretations. This was significant because So you see, all the time we need to have two parts in writing the literature review chapters. Okay. Now the second example with two sentences. The first one also the descriptive part because talking or reporting on a reverse study. But in the second sentence, as you can see here, they use the name of the reverse scholar in the second sentence, but actually it's the writer intention behind the sentence. The writer would like to make use of this authority to argue for him, to show his interpretations of the finding reported in the first sentence. So Bruce argued that, but actually that's a writer argument. But the writer make use of the authority in order to strengthen his argument. So that's why I told you citation is important in literature review chapter, because that chapter requires a lot of arguments from you as a writer. So that's why you need to know how to make use of the citation in order to show your argument, to support your argument. So the second example here showing part of the function of the citation in the literature review chapters. Okay. And now we continue with the next slide. As you can see here, I also share with you some expressions, some language phrases you can use in order to show your interpretation, your highlighting of the important or your voice in writing. It means that how you show the interpretive part in your writing the literature review chapters. And here also some other ones.
Dr. Loan, are you here?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you please share your screen again, Dr. Loan?
Is my sharing?
Yes, it's okay. Yeah, you have shared your screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it where I was lost? Yes.
Yes, this part. Okay.
Okay. So I can continue from here, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Because I don't know. I'm just looking at my screen. I'm not sure that something wrong happened or not. So let me know, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So now the second thing that you can write from interrogative to from descriptive to interrogative is to write with a response. Respond with the critic. So you can see here, icon is the layer approach. It means that first you describe the literatures, what people did, what they say, what they concluded, and then you start with the you follow by the critics. You critic on what they found, what they say, what they concluded. But when you critic on the reverse study, you sometimes may comment on their strength or either on their weaknesses. So no matter what you comment on, you have to come with the solution. For example, if you commented on their strength, you will say, okay, because of their good point, their strength, I will make use of them. I may adopt them for my study, for example. But if you critic on their weaknesses, okay, so it means that something they haven't did, so that's where you will do in order to fill in that gap or that missing point. Okay, so now I give you example in order for you to see, and I use the same color in order for you to know which one is which one. For example, in number one, is the descriptive part, because the writer describes the current state of the literature on this topic. Okay, and then in the second part, the writer read it. But look at the words I underlined. They are the negative words. It means that the writer comment on the current state of the literatures with the negative word. It means that commented on the weaknesses of the literatures. Okay, and from that witness, the writer come up with the solution, and you can see the signal work here. Thus, on alternative written corrective feedback should be employed, something like that. So you see, that is how we start from descriptive to interpretive ways of writing the literature review. Okay. And I also provide some language for you to use in order to criticize or to comment on the weaknesses and deficit, the weaknesses, and also on the strength. And if you follow the link I give below, and have a lot more phrases you can use in critiquing the literatures. Okay, I will show you the slide later. Okay, now let's do this exercise together in order to see writing the literature review this way is effective or not. Okay, in this paragraph, there are 5 sentences. So what I would like you to do now is to tell me, read quickly, and then to tell me whether they are descriptive or interpretive or both. Okay, I think we do together in order to save time. Okay, so the first sentence is descriptive because talk about this study, specific study. And in the second sentence, she suggests that she means this scholar, Johnson, 2008. So second sentence is also about descriptive, okay, part of the writing. And number 3, from this research, she constructed, oh, it's also about this research, it means descriptive. And number 4, for sure, talking about the finding from another research method, interview. So also about Johnson 2008 study, so descriptive. Look at sentence number 5. Sentence number 5 says, teacher need to be reminded that you may think maybe it's the writer's interpretations of the reported study Johnson 2008, but actually there's no language for you to ensure that. So this could be the cited author herself commenting on this, on her study. So it means that for this writing of the paragraph in the literature review chapter, it's on the topic. It is about the topic here. You can see resilient at the macro level. Relevant to this topic, yes, what they review related to the topic. But it's not critical, it's not interpretive, because it's lack of the language showing the writer evaluation in writing the literatures. So now let's come to the revised version of this paragraph in order to see how we need to include, or how we include show our interpretation. Here is including both critic and interpretation. And you can see I use different language for you to compare. Different colors, sorry. You can see here, first the writer have the critic language in writing this paragraph. You can see the word pivotal, successful, widely used. Her research makes it clear that, so those words are positive. So it means that strength, critic, positive critic. But if you look at the original paragraph here, you don't see such language used in the writing, even though the idea, the denotative meaning of the paragraph is the same, but the way they write is not effective. So that's what I would like you to notice. So you need to include the rhetoric language in your writing. So you can see the language I added here. And also, you also show your interpretations. Instead of say, she suggests that, she means the cited author. You have to say, in doing so, suggest that, showing that that's your understanding. And this understanding is crucial. And then the last sentence, the sentence number 5 in the reverse paragraph, you can see the way we write is different because we use the language to show our interpretations. And by doing that, you are showing your voice, you are iterating your voice in the literatures, in writing your literatures, okay? Some note for you to write a conclusion. When you write a conclusion, as I mentioned before, you need to establish the niche, you need to take the chance to position yourself in the literature. So that's why don't forget to draw the conclusion from what you review. And then how can you fill up, how can you make the research complete? It means that what is missing and how can you fill in that gap? Okay, so how to do that? You need to summarize and then to show their weaknesses and maybe their strength and maybe the gaps, and then you try to find a way to fill in those gaps. So that's what you need to do in the conclusion. Okay, and also that's the main purpose of writing the literature review chapters, to establish your study in the literatures. Okay, now we come to the last part of my presentation, as I mentioned before. Honestly, citations are necessary for all chapters in the thesis, but literature review chapter need them the most because citation, help the writers to strengthen the argument the writers trying to make in the chapters. Okay, so how? Why the citations matter in the literature review chapter? They matter because how and who we cite contribute to the writer overall argument. How and who we cite contribute to our argument as a writer. Okay, so let's look at some example. I can say here that this topic is very big, but during the scope of my sharing today, I just would like you as a novice writer to be aware of the significance of citation in your writing, especially the literature review chapter. So I just go, briefly over the significance of this rhetorical function. And if we need the detailed one, maybe another webinar, not today one. So I will show you some example in order for you to see the significance of citation in writing the literature review chapters. Okay, so again, how and who we cite contribute to our argument. Okay, strengthen or weaken our argument in the literature review chapter. Okay, now let's go to the next one. Look at the example here between a single author citation or multiple author citation. Okay, the single author citation is this sentence. Okay, you make a statement and then you put the name of one researcher or one authorities in the bracket. Okay, and the second one is the multiple authors. Citation. This means that you group or you use a lot of the name of a lot of researchers, reverse researcher in the bracket. So what is the difference between the two? So the difference here is that if you make the single author citation, you just show the perspective of that authority in your field, and you mean that you are aligning yourself with that authority. But if you make a statement or a point, an argument, and then you cite a group of authorities in your field, what you mean here is that you are showing the connections of the literature. You are showing the pattern of the literatures. And the most important thing is that you mean you want to prove that the point, the argument you have just made is significant, because a lot of authority in the field also think the way you think, or also agree with the way you think. So that's the difference between citing the single author or citing the multiple author. And it also shows that how you cite, who you cite, influence on your argument, okay, in the literature review chapter. So the second one, the second example, the second thing I want you to remember is you should know that there are two types of citation, the integral one and the non-integral one. The integral, oh, why doesn't work? Okay, the integral one means you place the name of the cited author in as a part of your sentence. As you can see in this example. And the non-integral one is you place the name in the bracket. And in the science fields, you place the name, no, not their name, the number in the bracket to refer to their study. Okay, so the difference here is that if you use the integral citation, it means that you would like then the name of the cited author as a part of your sentence, especially as the subject of your statement or your sentence. You would like to make use of their voice. You would like to make use of their authority to argue for you, to show your evaluation, to show your feeling, to show your whatever you want to argue in writing the literatures. But if you put the name of the cited author in the bracket, what you mean is that you just focus on the proposition in the sentence, not the people who did the study, but you just show them, okay, that's the idea I taken from. What you emphasize is on the message. But if you want to use the integral citation, you emphasize on the cited author. You want to make use of their voice to argue for you, to support you. Okay, and look at the example. Okay, what do you think about the ways of citing? The first paragraph, what type of citation is it? All of them are in the brackets, so it means that they use the non-integral citation. But in the second paragraph, they make the cited author as the subject of the sentence, so it's either integral citation. So what do you think about these two ways of writing? Is it okay if you write the literature review and you use the citations, different citation type in different paragraph? Like the first paragraph is non-integral, the second paragraph is integral one. Is it okay? No, it's not okay at all. Because if you do like this, you are like making the shopping list of the literatures. You read and you summarize and then you integrate into your writing, integrate the literature into writing, but you have no interpretation. It means that if you write this way, you just have the descriptive part, no interpretive part in your writing, and it's not effective. Because if you have no interpretive part in your writing, how can you integrate your voice? Or how can you position your research into the literature? So that's why this way of citing is not effective, okay? And another example is here. They use the name of the cited author as a part of the sentence, okay? But you look at the way they say, other researchers such as, so it means that they use their name as a part of the sentence, but they make their name as just example. So it means that they weaken their argument in writing this sentence through the way they cite. Also from this example, you can see here, First, this way of citing is wrong, not conventional, because we don't say for Mali, but we say according to Mali. Okay, that's it, the proper way to say. So even though they put the name of the previous author in the sentence, but actually the effectiveness of using the citation is absent here in this sentence. First, wrong way of using. Second, it is followed by the secondary citation. So the argument in this sentence is completely absent. So those are something you need to remember when you use the citation type. Okay, and also you also need to know that below the two citation type, there's a list of functions for you to choose from. But we just go through them quickly. Don't need to mention much about that, but it means that you can see there's a lot of things you need to remember in writing the literature review chapters. Okay, so if you follow the internal citation, or we say the narrative ways of writing, you can put the name of the cited author as the subject of the sentence, followed by the verb. Okay, in order to argue for you, in order to raise the voice for you. And second, if you want to emphasize the importance of the research method or the concept defined by some key figure in your field, you can put them as a naming. Okay, you are not afraid to indicate the research method or the formulation and the name. Okay, and the non-citation mean you use when you do not want to repeat the year of publication, because you mentioned that study before. But if you use the non-internal citation, or we say the parenthetical way, your purpose is just to show, okay, that's the short where I take the information from. Okay, you don't care about, or you don't pay attention to the cited author, or you show who did the action. So for the second way, you just use to show the agent of the action you mentioned in the sentence. So the sentence is usually in passive voice. And for a reference, you just show them, okay, you can read more information from this source. Okay, you direct the reader to another source outside your literature review chapters. And the last one, to show who developed the instrument, for example, but you don't pay much attention to who, but you just pay attention to this instrument only. Okay, that's why you play them in the bracket instead of like number 2 in internal citation naming. Okay, so just for you to see that it's not easy to write a literature review chapter, and in order to write it effective, so using citation properly is important. Okay, so if you use the internal citation, another thing you need to remember is that you need to use the reporting verb. You need the verb after the subject with the name of the cited author. But you need to know that reporting verb are grouped into 3 categories. As you can see here, you use the reporting verb to describe the research activity, like research finding or research procedures. And the second group you can see here, you use this group of reporting verb in order to show your feeling, your thinking, your attitude about the literatures. And the last group of the reporting verb is the discourse verb. This means that you use to show your evaluation, maybe your acceptance, maybe your objection to what the previous researchers say about. Okay, so under the 3 denotative meaning of reporting verb, you have a lot of option for you to show your evaluation. Okay, so in general, the evaluation function like factive or positive mean you show your acceptance, your agreement, your positive attitude. But if you use counterfactual or you use critical, you are showing your disagreement, your objection, your doubt about what the other people say in the literatures. But if you use like neutral or tentative, you didn't show your view at all. You just keep the standing position, the neutral position in talking about that. This means that you do not show your clear position in the literatures. Okay, not effective if you use a lot of neutral reporting verb in your writing, because the purpose of writing a literature review is to support your argument. So it means that you need to use more factual and counterfactual verb, reporting verb. Okay, so now Highland also show the list of the reporting verb for each group. You can have a look at later. Now let's come to some example, and then we will finish my sharing today. So the example about the use of the reporting verb. As you can see in the first example here, the verb denied we usually use when we show our objection. our disagreement to the proposition, right? But the way the writer used here is completely opposite because of the negation. You say did not deny mean agree, right? So if you want to show that you agree, you believe what they found is correct, why don't you say asserted that or found that to be clear that you are in support of this argument? So that's why this way of using the reporting verb is wrong, or I say that not effective. The second verb that you can see here, the writer make use of, sorry. And in the second example, the writer would like to make use of, the writer would like to make use of Liu 2006 to show the evaluation or maybe the interpretation of the finding. Sorry. The more efficient in English student were, the less anxious they seem to be. So if you are in support of this argument, but you use the verb notice, actually you did not show that intention at all. So for example, if you want to show that I agree with this finding, so you have to say that I and Liu agree that, or maybe asserted that, or found that, rather than notice that, because notice is the neutral one. The neutral one means you show no position, no stand to the cited message at all. But if you want to make use of this proposition or what finding they have in the literatures, you need to use the factive verb as I mentioned before, but notice is not the factive verb, it's in the neutral verb. So if you change the reporting verb, you can see the difference in the citing sentence. For example, if you say states that, it means a kind of tentative one, not very strong, but still better than notice, or believe that, stronger than notice. Or you can say that, confirm that, very strong. It means that you are in agreement, strong agreement with this statement. Okay, just some example for you to see. Now the last example is this sentence. So what I can say is that I don't think the racial verb here draws attention to is correct to use the reporting verb. So be careful. Sometimes you are kind of using the improper language as a reporting verb for reporting the reverse study, like in your research chapter. So now let's come up with the summary of my presentation today. Writing the literature review chapter is not the straightforward process, as you can see. Yes, we start from the research topic, the research question, and then we search for what to read. And we need to summarize, to tabulate them, to record them, this and that, and then we write. But it doesn't mean that we follow that way all the time. Sometimes when you are writing, you are going back to read more because you need some more information to support your argument. And also sometimes we are reading and we find like, oh, you need to change the topic. We need to change the topic because it seems like what we are planning to do has already been done by the other. It means that we are kind of reproducing what is already known in the literatures. So that's why writing literature chapter is a difficult task to do. It is difficult, it's just because writing this chapter is like you are having the conversation with the authority, the authority, the key or the previous researchers in your field. So in order to align yourself with them, in order to position yourself among them and your research in relation to theirs, you need to make use of their argument. You need to make use of their perspective. You need to make use of their research finding. So doing that, you are writing the literature review chapter with the authority, with the voice. But that's why the voice of the expert scholar or experienced scholar. So that's what you, I hope my sharing can help you to have some idea of how and what to write the literature review in order to make it effective, to make it support for your argument and the niche for your study. Okay, so here's the list of what I present today. You can have a look in order to see whether you follow them or not. And what I would like you to remember is that always integrate your voice in writing the literature review. chapters. Okay, and doing that means you have to follow the interpretive element, use interpretive element in your writing. And in order to do that, you have to use the citation properly. Okay, so here's the list of my reference I make use of for my presentation, also some other aspect like language you can use. So before I come with the question and answer, or maybe start with the next speaker, but my last word for my presentation is that good luck with your writing of the thesis, and also not only the literature review chapter for your thesis, but also for your literature review writing for your research paper later. Okay, so thank you very much, and that's all for my presentation today. And for sure, we can have the question and answer later, I think.
Yes, Doctor. Let me handle this again. You can stop sharing your.
I need to stop sharing. Wait a minute. Where should I? Okay, stop sharing. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Very interesting presentation from Dr. Loan. And one thing that I know that we need to avoid shopping list.
Okay.
Yeah, because yeah, we have so many natural verbs over there, and you state very clear about natural verbs that we need to state our position also and be an active reader in this case.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
thank you, Dr. Lon. So before we move to question and answer sessions, we move to the second speaker first, and for distinguished members, I mean participants, you can keep your questions. You can ask directly later on after this, or you may type on the chat, Zoom chat in this case. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next speaker from Indonesia, Ibu Dr. Ira Maisarah. Are you here, Ibu Ira? Yes, wait, I will give you access. Here, wait. Yes, Ibu Dr. Ira, I have given you access. You can start speaking now.
Okay.
Dr. Ira, can you?
Yes.
Yes. You can. Yes. Okay. You can start sharing your screen. Share screen over there. There is. Yes. Okay. Open your slide, Doctor. You can directly go to your slide. Choose your slide in the computer. You can directly open your PowerPoint. Okay. In the desktop over there, Microsoft PowerPoint, you can share. Okay, thank you, Dr. Ira. You can unmute your voice because it is muted. Ibu Ira, you are muted, so you need to unmute that.
Yeah, okay.
Ah, yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
Is
please.
it okay?
Yes, your voice is clear.
Okay. Good morning, all. It is nice to meet you all in this webinar. So, not much I would like to discuss in this webinar because it is part of introductions, and it is instead a little bit short.
Ibu Ira, you are muted.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Okay. So let me focus on what is the functions of an introduction. It is based on our perspective in the thesis or dissertation. So the functions of introduction is to give an overview for the reader. So the reader can see what we are going to discuss in the next chapters, such as in chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and the last one in summary. And it is kinds of what we say that the broad topic of the titles of our research itself. So the function of introduction is to give an overview for the reader. So when they read the thesis or dissertation, they can understand what we are going to discuss in the next chapters. And then for and but we have to understand that the thesis and dissertations is quite difference, but mostly it is the same. The difference is in the level of the studies. The thesis is focused on the master degree, and dissertation is focused on the PhD students. But mostly the thesis is quiet just discuss about not far and not longer, and also not too deeply than dissertations. But in dissertations, we need to observe more and also give deeply analysis because it is quite longer, and also need to deep hypothesis, so that we need to give deep overview. So it is quite hard from a thesis itself. But mostly we can conclude that the introduction itself present the background of the knowledge, and we have to tell the readers, so the readers will not get confused when we discuss letters in chapter 2, or what we have discussed in previous by Dr. Lan about the literary studies, because it is what we say that have connections each other. So when you choose the topic in introductions about linguistic, and the focus is, for example, is about pragmatic studies. So the discussions next on in the literary review must also about the pragmatic itself. So that's why I said that introduction is a part of an overview of the research topic itself. Um, and then it is a quiet difference when we write an introductions in an articles, and also in the thesis and in dissertation, So what should we structure an introduction? The first one, we have to know first what is the problem. So it is focus of our writings in the introduction. So the problems will guide the authors or the writer to write descriptions, to write the introduce of the contents in part one of the thesis and the dissertation itself. For example, we are going to discuss about the curriculum studies. So what is the problems in the curriculum itself? So we have to discuss more in introduction to give descriptions to the readers about what is the problems will be helped in our dissertation or in thesis. And the second one is, are there any existing solutions? So when we want to find out the solutions about the studies itself in the research, we have to know whether there is studies from the previous authors or literary that we can refer to when we want to do the analysis, because it is related to literary studies in chapter 2 later on when we want to solve the problems. And then we have to know also which solution is the best. So it is related to the research questions usually. So in chapter 1 or in introduction part, usually we have to write also about research questions, because it is the big guideline for the writers, for the researcher, or for the authors to guide them to make the analysis later on and to find out the literary review that's suitable to make the analysis and to guide to find the findings. And also, what is the main limitations? So what is the gap? What is the gap between your hope as the researchers and also the realities that happens in the field of the research? And then what we hope from our research, and we have to also see what is the research findings that we can predict later on in our research. And it is very simple, I think, in introduction, because just give an overview for the reader. So not too much that we can discuss in the introduction. So we come to what do I need to write an introduction. So it is very simple. The first one is we can give the definitions. So there are four steps that we can follow to write a good introduction. The first, we can give definitions, or we can accept it set out of the art for problem to be resolved, and also we can set the author's objective. And also, based on the previous presentations, we have to read more to make the good argumentations in our introduction, so that we can see the gap between the previous studies and also with our research, whether it is have novelties or whether it is need to be resolved in our research or not. And it is very important to write the author's objectives based on the research, and also introduction to the literature review. And it is the basic how to write a good introduction, how to write deep opinion to the readers. So it is very give a tight opinion, so that it is will give an overview for the reader that our research is very interesting to be read later on in the future. And that's why we have to make an outline in developing our introduction. The first, we have to survey the literature review. as I mentioned before, when we want to discuss about curriculum, when we want to discuss about assessment, when we want to discuss about linguistic literatures, we have to find out the relevant literature to support our research itself, and we have to read, and also we have to discuss whether it is suitable for our research or not, to develop our introductions, to refer our topic to the previous studies, and also authors' contributions. In here, the authors make a very clear statements and on how what they describe in the paper represents. So we have to make focus that the research is discussed about what, and also what is the aim of the present words, and what is the main of the research. The main of the research can also set as the purpose of the research, and also the future plans of the research, what we are going to do in the research, maybe the procedures that we are going to use in our research. So, and also what we hope from our research later on, the contributions to the theoretical studies, and also the contribution maybe for educations, for linguistics development, and many more, and also make the outlines of our research. And then the important point in also writings, introductions, I mean the good writing in introduction, is what thesis should be used, because it is the main problems also that comes from the writers or the researcher. Sometimes they got confused what should tenses that can be used in developing our writings. Actually, there are some kinds of tenses that can be used from the introduction itself. It depends on what we are going to discuss, what we are going to describe in our introductions. We can use the present simple in generally to begin introductions, or sometimes we can use the present perfect, and sometimes we can use several tenses, depends on our descriptions. Maybe we want to citing authors' opinions, and also maybe we can give argument of our writing itself, and also we can use some of tenses in introduction. So it depends on what we are going to write in our introduction part. And then here, to sum up, because I said that it is a very short part of thesis and dissertation, because it is only an overview, because in thesis and dissertation, I think the most important things is in literary work is about chapter 2, and also maybe findings and discussion, because it is the main part, I think, and introduction is only wide descriptions of the research, only guideline for the readers. So to make sure whether our introduction is very clear for the reader, we can guide ourselves to make sure about the introduction, whether it is very clear or not. The first one is we have to make sure about the research questions, whether the research questions in chapter 1 or introduction is very clear for the reader. For example, what we want to find out in our research, it is must have good questions. So it is as the guideline for the authors in helping finding the result later on. And also have we mentioned some purpose that we can guide the readers to see what we are going to reach in our thesis or dissertations. And also it is have the roadmap. So what we are going to do is plan very well, and also it is possible to be assessed, and also sufficient difference, and whether we have used simple tenses or not. But sometimes that may confuse is because the introduction is very simple part of thesis and dissertation. Sometimes writers got confused to make differences between what is the difference between abstract and also introductions. In abstract, we are not going to discuss deeply about what is the problems of the research, and also there is no some statement from the author's literary review. But in introductions, we have to give more descriptions about the topic, about the reasons, about the novelties of our research, and also can be supported by some theory from the experts or from the previous studies by the previous researchers, to see that it is very important to be researched. So what we can conclude from this part is introductions is a brief summary of our research itself, that is consists of descriptions, and also consists of plans, and also consists of theories that will guide the researchers to find out the findings itself. I think for introductions, that's all. Maybe we can discuss later on.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ira Maisarah. You have presented.
Thank you, Mr. Aziz. Back to you.
Yes, yeah. You can stop sharing your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the second speaker, Dr. Ira Maisarah. You have presented about how to manage an introduction as well as the body of the paragraph, the body of the thesis and dissertation. Now we move to the third speaker. It is the, okay. The third speaker is Dr. Syafryadin. Okay, let me give you access to this. Which one, Syafryadin or Syafryadin?
Position my screen.
Okay. Yes, please, Dr. Syafryadin.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum.
You are muted, I think.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, good morning and salam sejahtera buat kita semua. So if I see the participants, of course, the participants are dominated by the Indonesian. So here today on this occasion, I would like to say thank you very much for the Prof. Safnil as the head of postgraduate program of English education, and of course the moderator Aziz. And on this occasion, I would like to share my experience in writing thesis or dissertation. But let me give you the short intermezzo. Short introduction. Well, in writing thesis or dissertation, I think it can be divided by two factors: academic factor and academic factor. I just informed that every university is possible to have different policy change. Yes, policy in terms of writing thesis or dissertation. Based on what I have experienced, for example, because I graduated from Semarang State University, Central Java, Semarang. So when I enroll as the students for the postgraduate program, so we are asked to use research and development design. But after 1 year, there was 2015 or 2016, there was a policy change. Postgraduate programs students we're not allowed to use research and design. So I have to change my research design. And the supervisor also is very important because we have to know the characters of the every supervisor, whether they are in, perhaps they have a mainstream in terms of research design, like qualitative or quantitative, mixed method, or R&D. Here, the academic factor. The first one is the topic selection. Of course, it will be obtained by reading relevant studies and etc. And supervisor selection is very important. You have to know the characters of the supervisor itself and the schedule. Sure, you have to have the schedule what you are going to do for this week. Where you write the introduction or the literature review or the research method or findings and discussions and conclusion. And the research method is very important because it will, it will like the procedures in doing your research. And you have to follow the template and of course the previous studies. Well, this is non-academic factors like self-assessment. So we have to measure our ability in writing. So if we have known our ability, so we can know that, oh, this is our capacity. So if we have known our capacity, why we have to do something difficult in writing thesis or dissertation. And the next one is building self-confidence in writing thesis or dissertation. So here, I think building self-confidence are obtained by upgrading your skill, because everyone has different self-confidence in writing thesis or dissertation. So please upgrade your knowledge in writing and reading. And face obstacles like the career. Several students in postgraduate programs, were lecturers or teachers. They have a position at that office, and etc. So they have to manage it. And the writer's block. Oh my God, this is this is one of the obstacles for the students to write thesis or dissertation. So you have to think about it. But for me, it depends on the person, because when I got the writer's block, of course, I have to break for several times. And after that, I build my mood again to write. So the main point is it depends on the person. The scholarship if you don't get the scholarship in your program, of course, you have to buy by yourself, and it becomes a problem. And the social media. So in social media, I think it's one of the factors I think that can influence your writing thesis or dissertation. So it depends on the person. If you can control how you play social media, I think it's okay. But in fact, we cannot control it, because so that's why until right now I don't have any Facebook, Instagram. I just have WhatsApp. So I install those programs if I need it. It's based on my needs. For example, when I go to the Philippines or Cambodia, they have also Facebook, so I just install Facebook. When I go to Japan, so I have to install Line because they have Line. So it depends on the situation and context for playing social media. Here, after you write your thesis or dissertation, of course, don't be shy to ask your friends to get feedback or comment or review. So before you consult to your supervisors, this is very important. So don't be shy. So here, the main point is the research method. Here there are 4 research method approach that I showed to you: quantitative, qualitative, mixed method, and R&D. So it depends on you which method is appropriate for your research. Here I have showed you several parts in research method, like quantitative survey and experiment. So if you are interested in conducting research on quantitative, you can use survey and experiment. Qualitative, like ethnography, if you are interested in conducting research on culture, so you just choose ethnography. Grounded theory, you develop the theory by exploring something like that. And case study, of course, this is one of the part of qualitative. So if there is a case, extraordinary case, kasus yang di luar kebiasaan, so you do case study. And phenomenological, of course, but this is actually, to be honest, I never do phenomenological, but it's like you know, the informant as the main source. For example, we conduct the research on COVID-19. So the main informant is the people who are in COVID-19 disease. And narrative research. So if you want to conduct the research on finding out the figure, tokoh, atau biography, you can do narrative research. And the last part is action research. So according to the Creswell or Cohen, Hagem, 2009, action research is part of qualitative. But this is, yes, this is very useful to be conducted by the teacher. And the next part is a mixed method. You can do sequential or concurrent, and research and development. But just to emphasize that, for example, in Thesis, you can use quantitative, qualitative, mixed method, and research development. But for example, for me, when I continue my study in Indonesia University of Education, so we are not allowed to use action research at the time. Kami dilarang untuk menggunakan action research. So we can choose a case study. Biasanya actually case study, experiment, mixed method, or research and development. But you have to think about if you want to do research and development, it will take time. And for the dissertation, for me, dissertation at the time, because you know there was a change of in terms of policy, so we are not allowed to use a research and development. But it depends on the university itself. So every university has their own policy, like in terms of research design, like you can use case study or ethnography, experiment, and mixed method. So here it is the elements. I mean, this is only the general elements in research methodology, like this design, research setting, population of sample, data analysis, and the last part is data analysis. I mean, instruments and method of data collection and data analysis. But actually, sometimes we found at university that the instruments is not written, but it's because it is included in method of data collection. So here it is. I think this is very familiar book in UNIB. So menulis tesis dan disertasi. This is written by Professor Emilia. So this is very famous. So everything at the time, I just think that I want to buy this book because I don't know whether I continue my study in the doctoral program or not. But finally, in fact, I continue my my study. So this book is very useful for me to guide me to write a dissertation. Okay, let's talk about the research design. So the research design must be overt. You have to choose an appropriate research design. Which one is appropriate for you? If you think that, because right now the mixed method is still, is getting hot. So perhaps you want to do research. Your research design must be mixed method. It's okay. So because my dissertation design is mixed method. So I combine between quantitative and qualitative. And here is the example. You can see that you have to clearly state about the research method itself. For example, here the research can be characterized as qualitative program, and then you can see the one of the types of qualitative is a case study. Here is the example, and at the end, of course, I will show you the research methodology, full research methodology in Word, so you can see clearly how to write the research methodology. And the next one is the research setting, population and sample. So the research setting, I think it depends on the university itself, because several universities allow the students to state clearly the research setting. For example, I conduct the research in SMA Negeri, contohnya SMA Negeri 13 Bengkulu. But for me, because in UPI, so we are not allowed to state the, clearly, we conduct the research in one of the senior high schools in Bengkulu. It's like that. So the population and the sample. So the population or sample, it must be clear, of course. and you can see you have to write the sampling technique. What is sampling technique appropriate for your research? For example, if you use qualitative, itu biasanya itu menggunakan composite sampling, and for example, the experiment you can use random sampling. It depends on your sample and population. And here it is, the example of the population and sample. Okay, just look at the time. And here it is the next example. The participants of the study were 18 semester 6 student teachers. So I have to talk fast because there is only one, again, the speaker from our university. And here it is, the instruments. So you have to write clearly about the instruments, like the observation checklist, questionnaire, interview guideline, not taking our documents. So everything must refer to the indicators. And don't forget to validate your instruments. It's very important to validate your instruments. So here is the example, like this, the instruments. Okay, the next part is data analysis. So in data analysis, whether you use qualitative or quantitative, you have to write the clearly data analysis. For example, when you use quantitative data, you have to write your data analysis in terms of quantitative. For example, but for thesis and dissertation, for my experience, we do not write the formulation, but we just write the statistical calculation by using SPSS or something like that. And the data analysis here, for the qualitative, you can use thematic analysis, coding, categorize, categories, and extract. And here is the example. In this is quantitative. And I will show you here. Okay, here it is. You can see that, for example, my research methodology. Here, first there will be clear research design here, and I also write this. Because I use mixed method, qualitative and quantitative research method, and after that I also state clearly the types of mixed method that I use, and here it is. I use this, and after that, the graph. And the quantitative base, I use experimental research. So I use a vectorial design like this. And the research setting, population and sample, and my sampling technique, it must be clear. I will share to you if you need it. Of course, we will send it with the certificates and the materials from the speakers. Here it is, the instruments, yes, observation checklist, and etc. Questionnaire, everything must be clear. Until the reliability and the validity of the instruments. And here is the, only examples. So I think in my life, I just follow these three keywords. Kata Agim sih ya. If we want to success in our life, whether in writing thesis or dissertation, so we have to. The first one is luruskan niat Anda. Try to make sure your intention, karena banyak sekali because many friends of mine, stop studying in the city in postdoctoral program or master program, and after that you have to maximize or optimize your effort, and after that everything is given to Allah. So I think that's all my short sharing. I hope you can understand. If you have any questions, you can ask later.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Syafryadin. Ladies and gentlemen, I forget to say that Dr. Syafryadin and Dr. Ira Maisarah are the lecturers at the English Education Program, Graduate Program of English Education, University of Bengkulu. Okay, now we still have one more speaker. still again from the University of Bengkulu. So her name is Dr. Wisma Yunita, and she is one of the lecturers again at the University of Bengkulu, from the graduate program of English education. She has been teaching English for about 10 years, so it's been a decade in the university. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Wisma Yunita. I will give you the access.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Aziz.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Still morning, almost noon. Good morning, everyone, especially Prof. Safnil, Bu Ira, Pak Adin, and Pak Aziz, and all participants from all over Indonesia, and Dr. Lawrence from the far away in Thailand. I'll make it very short because we have limited time, right? So you have made me co-host, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay. Oh, wait. Okay, where's my screen? Kok nggak ini ya? Oke, di sini. Kok nggak kebuka slide-nya ya? No. I haven't. This is not my slide. No, not this one. This one, yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Is everyone? Can everyone see my slide? Yes.
Yes, clear.
All right. Okay.
Clear.
Right.
The topic for the last one is
Belum full. Full screen.
Oh yeah. The computer be late.
Okay, yes.
It's going well.
Right.
The last topic for today's webinar, result, discussion, conclusion, and suggestions. So I'm going to go to, so this is it. Right, result, the part of the thesis that is answering the question of the thesis or the dissertation. And in this result, we present the summary of our outcome of our study, whether it is experimental or whatever research design you have decided for your thesis or dissertation. And this result also contains the information gathered as a result of the methodology or methodologies applied. And it should have a concise verbal description of the outcome. For example, if your research question is only 2, then that will be the guidance for you to write the result section. You can divide it based on the research question. And then here you present the result by helped by the tables, figures, and of course the table and the figure should have the legend showing the statistical result or any, if it is experimental, so it's any experimental error that is found out from the studies. And this is one, last one is this section use past tense for result obtained. This one is often become the problem for the student. They write confused with the tense to be used, but you need to use the past tense for the result obtained. For example, here the result indicate that, but when you want to refer to the figures of the tables in your result, you need to use the present tense. Like here, for example, figure 1 displays, table 1 below shows that. And you need to also remember that the verb tense that can be used for this research section, past tense, this is some of the example. Like here, a total of 470 students shows that, and then you can also set the student scores increase, but blah, 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 it's decrease. And then the average score was higher than the second cycle. For example, if you are doing the action research, actually it's okay for you to do the research, action research for S2 or even S3 or a doctoral degree. And then the last one, the next one in all, like 90% of the English major student and 75% of the non-English major student indicate that they have difficulties in doing the TOEFL test, for example, or whatever the topic of your research. And then also the difference in mean score was not statistically significant. So these verb tense will show the word you use, the phrases you use will shows you how good you are at writing when you use several phrases or terms that are used usually in academic context like this. And I will, at the end of the study presentation later on, I will show you that this book, the fresh book for writing papers and research, this is a must-have book for every academician like us. So the books also shows you what kind of phrase or words that to be used in every chapters of the thesis. Here, like example, we need to also use chart, tables, and figure. In here, most common mistake made by the student, they write the explanation or the title of the graph or the tables. For example, in chart, they made it above the table here, but also made it again above the box of the table. So twice, you don't have to do that. And for the figures, it should be written below. Basically, it's also should revert back to the rule or the guidelines that being used in your university or your study program. And here, let's see the pie chart. The pie chart given above. So here we have the tense is depicts that only. But for the result, you use the past tense agreed, and then there is all the respondent agree that came facilitate the learner. So for the result, we use past tense, but to refer to the table or the chart, we use the present tense. And now we are moving to the discussion. Discussion is one of the most difficult part to write, according to me, beside the literature review, of course, which is also quite difficult for most students here. Because why is difficult? Because it's one of the part that needs the writer's critical thinking on the result, and then they got this finding or this result, and what is it? So what? And then you need to really think about it. And it should revert back to the theories or the finding from the previous research. And usually it's typically moved from the general to the specific one. And then often begin with a brief summary of the main finding. Students often made that in discussion, they explain or they write more about the result. So it's a kind of repetition, a long result. It should be not that way. It's just a summary of the main finding. And then after that, what is your analysis on the finding or your comment on the finding? And should answer the question state in the research question or in the introduction part of the thesis or the dissertation. And it's the place where you interpret and conclusion are drawn. So no more table. This one is important. No more tables, no more chart, no more graph or numbers in your discussion. It's just summary of your finding and then how is your opinion and your comment on that finding by relating it to the compare the result to other studies or the and give general significance of the finding. You can say like this finding is similar to the previous finding or is different from the previous finding. On also you also should mention not only it's different from this study of someone, for example, but you need also to say what is the possible reason for similarities and the differences, what make it different. So you need to discuss that. And then you also will present here in the discussion your your study limitation, your source of error, and plus plans for your future words. But not too many, but you need to state it here. As academician, if we have a limitation in our study, we need to mention it honestly, and then so that people can do a further study on the same topic and continue our work. And then it's also need to mention, mention other research needed. For example, to address question still unanswered, to address new question raised by the findings. So when people read your discussion and later on your conclusion, people say, oh, we can do another research based on this. And this is interesting, for example, or this research is not yet finished. And then we can continue this. And then verb tense for the discussion section. Let's hear. The first one, present tense to explain significance of result. For example, I didn't take it from our field, but I found this from some reference. Example here, removal of vegetation for agricultural purpose appear to negatively affect. So it's used present tense for to explain significant result. Because in this part of discussion, we comment on the significant result or interesting result that we found from the study. And I forgot to mention it before that when you go back to the result, when you write the tables, I mean in your result, please do not mention all the tables again, like this. Table 1 shows that blah, 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 and then you just continue or to explain all the table, but you just need to focus on which one is the interesting finding that you need to comment, not restating what has been stated on the table. So and here, go back to the discussion. We use past tense to summarize finding with present tense to interpret result here. Example, this one, let's see, I put the word tentative and less tentative here. As the maxima and minima did not correspond to high and low tide, it is possible that blah, 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 observed may not be. So this is also in discussion, we cannot claim, as far as I know, we cannot mention a strong claim here, but we should like may not be, you can use that. So it's meaning the result can be, it's just still tentative. You are not making strong claim. And then this one, example 2, less tentative, did not differ. What across a side indicating that blah, blah, blah is okay. But what I learned from the writing things that also from my supervisors saying that if you find something on the result, or if you find you did say something, you may not claim something too strong because otherwise, if you have very strong data or very strong theories on your finding or on your discussion, so you can use it like tentative and less tentative. It can again, you need to use the phrase that used for the discussion. Later on, there will be some more. If show you the book later on, then you can read that. It will be useful to be used. And now we are going to the conclusion. Conclusion, it's not long, like probably like 5 pages or something or more. The one thing you need to show, to make sure that when you make the conclusion, you have a lot of data, you have a lot of finding and everything you find out. You just need to conclude based on the research question. If it is not being asked in the research question, do not conclude something out of your aim of your research, I guess. And should be no further discussion in the conclusion, just conclusion. Sometimes students still make conclusion and a discussion there. And the conclusion is what the discussion chapter has been arguing for. And then also should, as mentioned before, should mention the aim that's stated in the first chapters, meaning to say in the research question or the introduction of your thesis or your dissertation. So it's the place for the student to both summarize and wrap up the work, just a short conclusion. And then suggestion or recommendation. This section is written for giving recommendation to the parties involved in the research on for the researcher that can be done. And here, oh sorry. Somehow in some institution, suggestion and recommendation may be combined with a conclusion, or in a long report presented in separate section. It's again come back to your guideline in your study program or your institution. And in here, just a suggestion and recommendation address limitation and suggest how they might be overcome in future work. Example, the word, further research is recommended to determine blah, blah, blah. It is recommended that the frequency be increased during the usage of blah, blah. So it's here for you to give the suggestion in the part of the suggestion and recommendation. And reference, I put because this one is left, I think it's okay for me to give it, to include it here, like reference. It's depend again back to your institution rule or guideline. If it is using APA manual, so you have to go to use the APA manual. You can use manually, or you can use other kind of ways of writing the reference. But mostly use manual or APA style. And the APA style is the current one is the 7th edition. If you still use the 5th edition, or just upgrade that into the 7th edition. And then the appendices. Appendices for any kind of like the finding or the result of your interview or whatever it is, and then the instrument you put it here in the appendices. And then reference. Just go back later on to the APA manual. For example, in our university, we use APA manual. Will be detailed later on any book or any manuals like APA manual you can use. And be careful to write the reference because some students think that, oh, this reference just copy it or just take it here, but they don't know. For example, the name, if the name is Wisma, Yunita, you need to say Yunita, comma, way, and then W, I mean, then dot. Sometimes they just put the full name and then do not make it concise. So I think everyone will know how to do the references, but just make sure you follow the rules. And this is also one of the pages or the part in your dissertation or your thesis or even in your journal being seen by the reviewer or your lecturer. They will pay attention to this, whether you are quoting the opinions or the theory in the right way. Things to remember when writing thesis and dissertation. Be concise and make your point clearly and follow a logical stream of thought, and avoid using jargon because you are writing in academic way. And then again and again, follow the guideline for writing thesis and dissertation at your university. And then use appropriate punctuation to make the text readable. Avoid spelling mistake wherever possible. Wow, this one is also the problem from the student. But you can do grammar checker in your computer or any application that you can use to check your grammar. It's sad when you have students come to you and then still have a lot of spelling mistake as the supervisors. And then use appropriate grammatical sentence structure. This one is also a bit our concern, and make sure that this one is clear before you submit your thesis or your dissertation to your supervisors. And then use word accurately and check your understanding of the meaning. Do not be verbose or repetitive. And this is the book that I think every one of you should have. The student, I mean, the students, S2 or S3 student, this book is very useful for you. The first one is the book from Baltridge and Starfield, Thesis and Dissertation Writing in a Second Language, a handbook for supervisors and also for the students. And then fresh book for writing papers and research in English. This black one on the left, right, on the right of my computer is one of the book that is very useful that you need to have. So you can have language or your sentence will be more sophisticated, more canggih ya, lebih keren bahasanya, more academic. According to the required needed when you write your thesis or your dissertation. I think that's all from me. I thank you so much, and I have a great day. Back to you, Pak Aziz.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wisma Yunita, and you can now stop sharing. Now we move to the next session, the last session. It is question and answer session. I have received some questions here. Dr. Loan, are you still here? Pardon me, Dr. Lot.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, okay, yes. There is one question for you from a student, a graduate student of English education at the State University of Malang in Malang, East Java. So she asked you, in finding the articles as the references, is it possible for us to cite some references that come from another major?
So what does it mean when she say come from another majors?
Yeah, her major is English language teaching. So she wants to cite from, for example, psychology, from another field of study.
Whatever reference you cite, make sure that it's related to what you want to argue for in her study. Like if she involves some psychological aspect in her research work, why not? Right?
So
because
that's
what we cite is to support our argument.
Okay.
So if you plan to do something related to psychology, so why not? She should cite, right? Like the student or the teacher psychology in teaching.
Yes.
So sure, she did some studies, some papers, some references from that field also, because it depends on what we going to do and what we say in order to support our argument, our study. So yes. Yes.
Okay, and then still from her, I often get suggestions to cite articles that were published on the last 5 to 10 years. Is it possible for us to cite the theory from the generating experts that were published perhaps a century ago?
My answer is yes. If following the charm analysis, I think Professor Sanif are expert in that, right? So even though his work in 1980, it's still his work is still cited now.
Okay.
Because it's the key, the major work in the field.
Fine, yeah.
Especially in ESE.
Yes.
That's why it's possible, but make sure that it's the key one. the key one in the field. So why not? Because that theory was developed by John Swell, so he was cited again and again, even though now more than 20 years already. It's still cited.
Okay.
And people in the field will know which one is the key, the major one. So don't worry about that.
Thank you, Doctor.
Just worry for the obvious one. They may not know which one is the key one. That's the problem.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Lon. Now, one question for Dr. Syafryadin. It is in order to analyze an intrinsic terms of movie, such as character of an actor, what method should be done?
Okay.
There is method. Okay.
Thank you very much, Bapak yang who has already asked the question. So I think you need. I give the suggestion. You need to read the Work and Goal and Frankel's book. So I think for the analyze the intrinsic, or the actors in the movie, you can use the content analysis. So it can be quantitative and it can be qualitative. If there is a speech, of course, it can be quantitative, but it's not, of course, it can be qualitative. And how to collect the data? I think you need to do transcription first about the transcript of the script, and after that you do coding or categorize. I think that's all. The main point is the content analysis. You need to look the books from the Frankel and also the Work and Goal. I think that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Syafryadin. Hope that would be help. That would help the participants. Okay, I open for two participants to ask questions. Is there? You may speak up here directly by activating your. Okay, there is no. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think that's it for today. Dr. Luan from Thailand, Dr. Wisma, Yunita, and then Dr. Syafryadin, and Dr. Ira Maisarah. I apologize for my mistake. I'm sorry if I have. I'm sorry for if I have mistakes. Yeah. Thank you for your attendance in this Zoom webinar, and see you soon. Thank you.
See you.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Luan.
Thank you. It's my
Thank
pleasure.
you, Dr. Lan.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
How many pictures?